Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gord Heidel, and it's my pleasure to introduce Allison Zer from SAS Poly Welding and Fabrication program. She has over 10 years experience in the welding industry and is here today to talk about working as a welder and a fabricator in the industry. I just want to mention that if you watch this presentation, please go to our website at www.rdiec and fill out the survey that we have there. You can click on it at the top or click on the QR code and that will take you to our website and the survey as well. We award a $50 gift certificate at the end of each month. Based on who has completed the survey, it automatically enters you into it. So Allison, without further ado, I want to thank you for taking the time to make this presentation up and to talk to the students about the careers in welding and fabrication.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone who's able to join in today. And like Gord said, I'm just going to talk a little bit more so about my journey as a female going through and working in the welding and metal fabrication trades. I just want to make a land acknowledgement here that SAS Poly, we are operating and situated on Treaty 4 and 6 territory, as well as the homelands of the Métis. So like Gord introduced, my name is Allison Zer. I am a I don't know, a lot of things, I guess. I'm a mom. I'm currently a welding educator. I'm a mentor. And I'm currently a student, actually. Being in the education, obviously, I always push people to educate themselves and get more education, and that is something that I work towards as well. So education currently that I have behind me, I've got my RSc BSc in welding and metal fabrication. So for those of you who might not be familiar with those acronyms, those are the red seal endorsement as well as the blue seal endorsement, which just basically means I have my journey person in welding and metal fabrication. So that's kind of the RSC, learning the trade itself. And then the BSc is more of the business supervisory management component. So they kind of work hand in hand. So having both those certifications opens a lot of doors for me. It gives me the chance, if I wanted to have my own business, I now have some kind of business management and that kind of schooling behind me to help me with that. As well as, like I mentioned, I continue on with education. I just finished my level 1 weld inspector course. So I did all the theory learning. So now I'm at a point of just writing the exams to complete that certification. So some of the duties, I mean, throughout my career, I've worked in shops. I'm now currently working in the education sector. So I'm teaching a welding program, an applied certificate that's actually going to be starting up right away. And then I also work with the WIT department, which is the Women in Trades and Technology. So we provide exploratory courses and just help women get interested and involved in the trades. So I guess some of my duties currently, a big component of my job is creating a safe and welcoming learning environment for so many of these women coming in. Some of them have never been in a welding shop, so they don't know safety. So it's my job as the instructor to keep them safe and also to make it fun, right? You want to come in and hopefully spark some interest, literally and figuratively, and just kind of, yeah, gain some interest and enjoy your time while you're in the shop. Also, I work to inspire others to reach their full potential, because so much of the time, and I know I was one too, as soon as I got into the welding shop, I was so uncomfortable. I was so nervous. I didn't know what I was capable of. And so just having those conversations with people, just working with other individuals, really helps them to gain that confidence to push themselves forward and to realize what they are capable of. And another thing that is very important to me is leading by example. There's so many times, whether it's in industry or in school, you hear somebody, whether they're a supervisor or a coworker, you hear them tell you to do something, but then you watch them do the opposite. So for me, it's very important. If I'm telling you, you know, you need to be wearing your PPE, well, I'm going to be doing the same thing. I'm going to be leading by example. So even if you forget the words that I've told you, you can see me actually acting those out. So that's another important thing to me. So throughout my trade experience, I guess, there's a whole bunch of different equipment and different processes that I've used, different spaces that I've worked in. I'm not going to go into huge detail about all of them, but just a few pictures there just to kind of give you an idea. So the two on the left there, you can see me on the top left. I'm way at the back up in a scissor lift. I look pretty bored, I know. We were working on a giant project there, and it was my job in part of the assembly process to go up in the scissor lift, and we had to feed those tubes in. So if you look on the bottom left, you can see all the little tiny holes. We had to put, they were titanium tubes. We had to slide one tube, which was 40 feet long, in each of those holes. So just to give you an idea, one of these assemblies had 2,000 tubes, and every single one had to be inspected before it went in. So it can be a very lengthy process when you're working on projects, for sure. But seeing the overall it's so awesome to see, like, oh my goodness, look, I helped in creating this massive structure. And then on the flip side to where I am now, the two pictures on the right just representing kind of the equipment that I use as an instructor. So that picture on the top right, that's actually taken from one of our Mind Over Metal. It's a welding camp that we host in the summer. So I'm just there working with a student. We're working on the shear. We're working at just cutting material for one of their projects. And then the photo shown in the bottom right is just an instruction photo. So me just going through some of the equipment and telling the ladies, kind of giving them a basic rundown of how the equipment operates. Okay. So welding can be an extremely rewarding career. Not only obviously with the financial components, but also just kind of internal rewards. And those rewards are going to be different for everyone, right? For me, some of the things I find very rewarding about my career in the metal and fabricating trades are that I get to meet and work with people from all over the world. For me, I haven't been given a lot of opportunities to travel from work, and that's more of a personal choice. But I get to work with people who come to Canada from all over. I love learning about cultures. So that's definitely something that is exciting. And just to hear how, you know, different things are done throughout the world, whether it's building something a certain way. Everyone's kind of got their tricks of the trades. So just learning more about people, I enjoy that. In an instructing role, I really love helping others just discover their capabilities and what they're capable of. And just seeing people enjoy different things, right? Like I find it very rewarding to see an individual, and especially if they're struggling and you kind of see them getting frustrated, and then all of a sudden it can be one small thing and you just see that light bulb go off, and all of a sudden they figured it out, or, you know, they've come up with a solution, and they know where they need to go from there. So that, again, in itself is very rewarding. And also I find it's a fun outlet. The whole reason I got into welding was actually I was interested in metal art and kind of the metal decor. Obviously I knew I'd have to gain a lot of experience before I got to that point in my career. So after starting off in the shop, and actually gaining the skills, now I'm at a point that I can take those skills that I've learned, and like the photo in the bottom there, I can make, you know, a model airplane, or another one that's people are always excited to see are the metal roses. The picture in the top left there is a metal owl that I made. I had all the pieces cut and just kind of put it together like a puzzle. So I enjoy that, like the building, creative things, and just the hobby work as well. So with every career, obviously, there's going to be the pros, there's a few cons, obviously. Depends who you talk to. Some people have a lot of cons. I've had a really amazing experience in the work that I've done. But definitely a few of the kind of challenges in the metalworking trade. Obviously, the work is physically demanding. You know, you're on your feet for most of the day. If you're in a shop environment like I was, you're walking around on concrete, which is hard on your body. There are fumes, you know, there's a lot of things that have the potential to be extremely dangerous or hazardous. Obviously, with the proper training and safety and PPE, you take a lot of those risk factors out. But yeah, the work is physically demanding. There are jobs I've worked on, like that top right picture there, just representing some of the pipe jobs. Like I worked on a job and all this pipe was, 3-foot diameter. So it's massive. There's no way I could move it by hand. That's where the problem solving skills come in. So that's what I tell people is kind of the difference between welding and fabricating. The welders are the one who do the artistic, they do like the process, they join the metals. The fabricators are the ones who are building it. They're doing a lot of problem solving. They're figuring out what's the easiest way to do this in the shortest amount of time and still achieve the same results. So like I have there, working smarter, not harder. So how can we safely eliminate work by still, again, achieving the same results? Obviously, one of the huge things, and you'll find it whether you're working in industry or school, safety. Safety is always a top priority. We always want you to go home in as good shape as you came in. But things can go wrong, right? I have that picture there with kind of the smashed up visor. And I keep that picture on my phone. That was an accident that I actually had at work, where I had a lot of stress going on in my life, and it was just personal stress. But I brought it to work. I wasn't able to kind of set it aside. I let myself think about it too much. And then that combined with meeting deadlines, having a bunch of work to get done. The project we were working on, we had to do some rework. So we were even more behind schedule. And it was just in a moment kind of thing. I was rushing. And obviously in hindsight, I know I shouldn't have been rushing. I should have been taking the time to take the care. But at the time I wasn't. And I had an accident with my grinder where the disc actually exploded. You can see from my visor there, it got completely beat up. But again, it's a learning. I'm in a very fortunate place that I'm able to be here today to tell you about the story. But situations like that, they help out in teaching as well. They help students to know that, it's not just someone you hear about in an article you read that has accidents. They can happen at any time to anyone. But definitely if you're working at the right company with the right people, and once you receive the proper training, we can do so much to avoid those and to essentially reach that mission zero that everyone is trying to get to. So some supports and PD or professional development that have come in very handy to me. PD or professional development, I find, depending where you work, there are some companies that require you to take certain courses to advance yourself. And then there are other companies that give you the choice. So through Saskatchewan Polytechnic, where I'm currently working, we have the choice. There are some funds available that you can apply for. And that's actually how I got my Blue Seal endorsement. There was some funds that I applied for and I was accepted to. So I was able to take some schooling. So that's something I always encourage everyone. If you have the opportunity to take a program and it fits for you and your lifestyle and where you're at, do it. There's never, I've never run into any time when it's been negative, a negative factor that somebody has more education. So like I said, yeah, if you can do that, do that. Another important one, very much so for me right now, is IT support. Coming from the welding trade, I mean, I work with my hands. I'm a very logical thinker. I am not a very technological person. So having that support there is extremely important to me, given the situation we're all currently working in. As well as some companies, some places you work at might have unions. For welders, I do know a lot of welders who get involved with the Iron Workers Union. Sask Poly is involved with the union. Depends who you talk to. Unions can be amazing. Unions can be not so favorable. For me personally, I've had nothing but great experiences. They're there to help the employees, right? So as long as you're not abusing that, they're definitely a great support to have, as well as, like I have listed there, the SPFA, which is, again, a Sask Poly faculty association. That's another great place that has a ton of people who are there to support you as a faculty. And then even for students, we have a lot of mentorship programs. So through the WIT program, again, that's the Women in Trades and Technology, on each one of our campuses, we've got a WIT coordinator, and we've got mentorship programs. So if you're like a first or second level apprentice, and you would like to have somebody in the trade who's been through maybe a little more than you that you just want to talk to, I strongly encourage that. For me, when I first got into the trade, I was very much of the mentality of, I'm a strong, independent female and I don't need anyone's help and I can do this all on my own. And I mean, that worked for me. I worked for a couple years, but it was when I was in my third year of welding. So in my final year, I had the opportunity to have a female instructor, and we just developed that kind of mentorship, mentee relationship. And I still, to this day, I still keep in touch with her. I work with her, so it's a lot easier to keep in touch. But she helped me through so much of my career, whether it was just, I'm going through this in life. What can I do? Like, she's there for advice, whether it was personal or career advice. And just to have someone who's been through that and who can speak on experience makes a huge positive impact throughout someone's career. So whether you are a female and you get involved with the WIT mentorship program, or whether you're a male and you want to develop that mentorship relationship with someone, CWB Association, each chapter, so Regina, Saskatoon, the main cities have chapters, and they also provide that mentorship program as well. Okay, one of the huge deciding factors for why I got into welding definitely came down to salary and type of money you can make. And actually I had to Google this because I had no idea kind of what currently is relevant. So I did find on canadianvisa.org, they say the average welder, and this is depending what type of welding you're doing, where you're working, makes roughly 42 to 69,000 a year. I know for me starting out, which was many years ago, I was definitely below that 42. But I think that's probably a pretty accurate estimate nowadays. And again, like I said, that's depending. If you have your own rig and you're working up north, you could be making far more money than that. If you're first starting out in the trade, or you're a level 2 and still fairly fresh. If you're in a shop situation, you're going to probably be within that range. And then depends if you're working in like an urban or rural situation. If you're in a small town, you might not be making as much as somebody working in a big city in the same shop setting. So benefits and pension, there's something that I believe it's a very personal decision. For me, I guess speaking from my experience, I know when I first got into the trade, I wasn't that concerned about benefits and pension. I mean, I was 20, 21 years old and I was just starting out my career. I wasn't thinking about retirement. And same with benefits. I mean, I was a healthy individual. I just thought, okay, well, it doesn't really matter. Now my life situation has changed very much. Like I mentioned, I'm a mom. So benefits are huge to me now. I want to know that, you know, if my child gets sick or if I get sick, that we have coverage if I need to take time off work, or if we need to get medications, or for optical or anything like that. And same with pension. Obviously, we're not getting any younger. So just having that plan in place. And for me, I remember starting my pension. I remember starting at about 23 years old. And at the time, the guys at work, they were bugging me and, oh, you're so young. Why are you thinking about this? Well, I'm really glad I did, because now, you know, over a decade later, I already have a decent amount that's started in that pension. And I just keep hoping that because I started early, you know, that'll lead me to retirement a little earlier. So never hurts to start planning and thinking about those things. And again, go with whatever works best for you in your life and where you're at. So opportunities in the fields of welding and metal fabrication. So in regards to shortages, whether it's shortages of jobs, shortages of employees, in the decade that I've been in the industry, it has been a roller coaster, it seems. When I first came out of school and was looking for my first job, it was a slow time. There were very few places that were hiring, and it was difficult to get a job. And then a few years later, all of a sudden, everyone's hiring and everyone's looking for employers. And then it seems to almost kind of go in waves a little bit. Obviously, given our current situation that we're in, work isn't as readily available as everyone would like it to be. But the kind of nice thing about that is welding is an essential job. So even with the lockdown, there are still shops running. Yes, they might not be running at their maximum capacity or what they're fully capable of, but they are still going. So for those who are comfortable being out in the workforce, they still have work to be doing. In regards to advancements and growth, I mean, really, once you get involved, you can go anywhere with that. Just even looking at my own progress throughout my career, like I started in welding with the idea that I'm going to make metal furniture. From there, I learned the metal fabrication and how to build stuff. I've now gone into the inspection where I'm actually inspecting welds, and into education where I get to pass along my knowledge onto the next generation and get people excited about the trade. So, I mean, you could take it anywhere, you know, if you decide, you know, I love the welding trade, but maybe I don't want to be in the shop. Well, you could go into project management or estimating jobs, or I've known lots of people who have gone through welding and then gone to engineering. So, I mean, yeah, it's the possibilities only stop when you stop being imaginative, really. And again, yeah, related fields. I'm finding more and more, the more involved in welding and the metalworking trades I get, the more I start to be interested in other trades. So, for example, when I first started in welding, there was no way I was interested in machining. That was one trade. I had a couple buddies who were machinists, and I just thought, well, that's the most horrible trade. Well, now that I'm more involved and I have more knowledge, I am developing a much stronger appreciation of people who are involved in these trades. And I see how related they are the more I work with people involved with them. So like I said, you can take that and you can go anywhere with that. I guess I'm just looking at the time here. I see we're nearing the end. So just a little talk about work-life balance. And again, I'm going to say, whether you're worried about overtime, holidays, time off, different shifts, different hours, every place you work is going to be a little different. Some shops are only open Monday to Friday from say 9 to 5. You might decide that, hey, I've got a child at home and I don't want to pay for daycare during the day. So maybe, the spouse will work and I'm going to work night shift. There are people who enjoy being away from home, and you might have the capabilities to do that, where you work away for a week and then you're home for a week. So I think just kind of in regards to work-life balance, do what works best for you. I know starting off in my career, I used to pick up all the overtime I could. Overtime, holidays, any extra hours, I would work them. And at the time, it was perfect. I was a single individual. And I mean, what else did I have going on? Saving money was super important at that time. Then got pregnant, had my child. Well, now my shift has changed. I prefer to have more time off. I would prefer to not work the overtime and be at home with my child instead. Same with holidays. If I have the option not to work them, I'm probably not going to, because I'm going to be at home with my kid. So again, it's all a personal work-life balance, whatever works best for you. And there are so many welding metal fabrication jobs around, whether you're at a mine, at a camp, working on your own rig, or in a shop in the city, that the possibilities are really endless. I guess just to very quickly speak on kind of that photo there, as obviously a female in the trade, there came a time when, yes, I got pregnant, and I was expecting a child. One thing I would always recommend, if you do become pregnant when you're in the trade, take your doctor's advice for sure. I know for me, because I was in a shop situation where it's extremely loud, the occupational specialist was actually the one to recommend that I get out of the shop, just because the baby's ears became fully developed and he didn't think the noise levels would be good. I was very fortunate at the time. I was working at a large company in the city here, that they were able to move me into the office, and they were able to create a position so that I could continue to work. Again, depending on where you're working, I currently have a friend who's pregnant in the industry, and unfortunately she's at a small shop and they're not able to make those accommodations as they were for me. So again, it depends where you're working, what kind of work you're involved with, and yeah, just your whole life situation. But that's kind of where I'm at, and what I've gone through. I've thrown my email on there. If there's anyone that has any questions or would like to chat more, if there's anything that I missed that you'd like to know about, please feel free to, I guess, probably just drop them in the chat here, or shoot me an email, and I would be more than happy to answer your questions and have a chat with you. So thank you so much for joining in and for listening to a little bit of my journey throughout the welding and metal fabrication trades. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to talk to you soon. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Allison. I have a question for you. It's Renette. As a student potentially looking into the welding fabrication, where are we right now in that wave for employment? Are students potentially looking at jobs if they were to take the program, pre-employment program, or potentially an apprentice program? How do you feel, or what do you think about that?
Um, I guess I've been talking to a few people in industry. I know it is a slower time right now. Just kind of from what I've heard, there are some of the bigger shops anyway that are currently like on layoffs or on a wage freeze. So I know right now isn't the most ideal time. However, there are still places that are hiring. So I feel that we're kind of at this point probably at kind of a valley, I guess, in hiring, but I definitely see it. I've been hearing a lot of good things and a lot of positivity. So I feel that we're on the right track to be getting those students working again.
I'm also looking at a couple of companies that have acknowledged some buildings like the Viterra, the the ones that are potentially being made, and those jobs would impact welders too, right? There would be potentially some big events coming up that we could definitely need welders and fabricators too. So
Absolutely. Because the welders and fabricators, I mean, they do a lot more than just weld. Like when there are those large buildings, you're going to need people to assemble. So you're going to need people to take the fabrications and the small components that have been built in the shop and who are going to have to put the item together, So you definitely still need your field guys. I know oil has slowed down from what I've been hearing, but that's another one that it can pick up at any time. And I know in Saskatoon, anyway, there are quite a few shops that do a lot of work for the mines and oil patch and stuff like that. So it's kind of one of those, like I said, they come and go in waves. But I don't know.
no, thank you. That's great to know. And like I said, I think students understand that, and but just the information you've given is awesome. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, you gave some great advice about investing early and the power of compound interest. You did it smart. Also, with the big projects going on, people don't realize that welding transfers to a lot of different trades, and those skills often lead you to another ticket in another trade. And we're seeing that a lot more where people are having more than one trade. A mentor of mine said that when it's slow, that's your opportunity to improve your skills and your workforce. For companies to invest in their workforce to get those skills where they need them so that they can take advantage of when that wave comes again. And unfortunately, that's the way it's worked with trades for a number of years, but a lot of folks like that because you can take advantage of those good times and make a lot of money and then have more time off. So as a female though, in the welding and fabricating industry, how did you find your reception? I just want to, if you could talk a little bit about that, talk to that.
Yeah. I feel that my reception has definitely changed. When I first got into the trade, I didn't have that full confidence. I felt very competitive, and that is a personal characteristic of mine. But I felt that I had to prove myself and I had to almost compete with my coworkers who at the time were mostly men. So I felt that, I had to kind of compete and prove to them, why I deserved to be in the shop or why I was right in the job that I was. Now looking back on it, and I mean, given the experience that I've got, I would say you don't have to prove anything. Just go in and do your job. And that was definitely, I started to do that later in my career. And maybe it was just that I didn't care as much what people thought of me or kind of that extra confidence. But definitely once I started to show people, what I knew and that I could do the work and what I was capable of, you start to almost create an image for yourself, right? So it got to the point where, people would ask, oh, well, should Allison do this job? And it would be like, okay, well, my boss would know that, yes, she's hardworking, she's capable of this. So I think you definitely create an image for yourself. And I know starting in my career, I definitely didn't work very hard to create the most positive image. So it kind of came a bit negative to me, that I would be denied work or whatever because of this image that, oh, well, she's the girl and she can't do this, but because I would choose not to, or I would, say no to work. So I think by saying yes and just by, showing people what you're capable of, showing them that you're willing to put in the hard work and the dedication, it creates that positive image that you want people to know about you. And then also too, like the welding community, as any trade is, I'm sure, is fairly small. And so word of mouth really gets passed around. So if people, start hearing negative things about you, well, that's going to get passed around businesses. Whereas if you're putting a good image of yourself forward, then people are going to know that and they're going to start hearing that and passing that around. So I don't know if that really answers your question. I kind of rambled a bit. I apologize.
Yeah, that's great. That's great example and great advice, Allison. As a former shop teacher, I struggled for years to try to get more young women into my shop areas. The best welder I ever taught was a girl. The best painter I ever taught when I taught auto body was a girl. You have better hand-eye coordination. You certainly see colors better than me. So, it just trying to get young women to realize that they can do this and actually do it better than the guys in most cases. So thank you very much. Brittany, you came on. Did you want to say something? Your picture's on the screen.
Nope, sorry, didn't want to interrupt. Just really enjoyed all the information and was just wanting to be involved. So thank you very much, Allison. I enjoyed it. And I love the personal. Thank you for including your personal pics and your own personal journey. I know that's difficult sometimes. So.
Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions? Jen has a question regarding the survey.
In the beginning of this Zoom presentation, you mentioned the survey. In the list of drop down, it had said something about how, let me pull it up for a second. Career Spotlight attended. How do you want us to answer that? Because it's not in the list.
Welding fabricator.
Okay.
Yeah. And it'll come up. So Jen, I know that Renette is still recording, or Allison, I should say, Renette is still recording. Any other questions regarding the presentation, or any questions for Allison?
I do have one. What did you find is the hardest thing for you when you started in your employment, like as far as in the trades? What was the hardest thing you had to do?
Probably the hardest thing, like I mentioned when so I know I finished school in like May, and I actually didn't get my first job until I believe it was October. So that was I found it very challenging. And at the time, like, I wasn't sure if it was because I was a female. I had myself convinced that I wasn't finding work because I was a female. It was just a slow time and not really anyone was hiring, but I found it very frustrating. And it made me a little nervous, definitely, because coming out of school and then having, that many months of not working, I had thought, well, I might lose a bunch of my skills. So it was just kind of the uncertainty and not really knowing like when I would find a job or what kind of job it would be. That was probably the hardest. And then also to first starting, when I did get a job to first start, was definitely physically challenging for me. And that's the one thing I usually tell the students is like, if you find something hard at first, that's okay, because your body will adjust. And I know, like, for example, when I first started working, I was doing a lot of repairs and just cutting material, like using a torch, using grinders and stuff. And I found, like, at the end of the day, I would be physically exhausted. My body would be drained. And that lasted kind of about a week or 2 weeks until my body started building up those muscles. So you definitely, I feel that you grow in physical strength as well as mentally as you use those skills. But those would have been my two challenges, is just finding a job, and then the physical drain would have been the hardest from the start.
Yeah, it's nice nowadays too. There's so many mechanisms and machines out there that really eliminate a lot of the really physically demanding. We work smarter, not harder, and
Exactly.
safely. And we, when we're lifting heavy things, the first thing that comes up is how do we do it safely, instead of the get or done right away. We look at it from a safety perspective first. So really, there aren't the barriers, the physical barriers that maybe there were 50 years ago. So, and like you say, your body adapts. And that's great advice for young women that are thinking about getting into this trade. Is it's physically different from what you're doing, but you can get used to it, and it actually is a good workout while you're working. So
Exactly. I got to cut my gym costs. I would just go to work.
there you go. Any other questions before we end? I'm not hearing any. So Allison, I want to thank you very much for sharing your career path and your journey in the welding trade. And as you mentioned, those skills, welding and fabricating, cross over to many other trades. It's amazing when you start looking at trades, how the skills cross over. For welding, you've got boiler making, you've got pipe fitting, you've got iron workers, all sorts of trades that incorporate welding. So welding can be a start onto many other things. And thank you very much for leading by example and offering to put this presentation up and to mentor the next generation that's following behind you. So we'll end it there.